Hey guys, it's me, Danny, and today I want to discuss with you the recent tax credits, price cuts by Tesla, and price cuts by Ford. So let's just jump in. So I actually recorded this video on January 17th discussing the Tesla price cuts and how I felt about the Mustang Mach-E, but I decided to hold off on it because I kind of had an idea that Ford would also be doing the same thing. Now, if you're not familiar with the situation, here's how it is. Before this year, 2023, the tax credits work like this. Once you sold 200,000 units, you were done getting a $7,500 tax credit for making an EV as a manufacturer. Tesla exhausted that tax credit years ago, so they weren't even caring about that for a long time. Now with these revamped rules, if you have a car and you're a manufacturer, if you manufacture a car that's $55,000 or less, your buyers can get up to $7,500 in tax credit. If you manufacture a SUV or truck, it's up to $80,000. Okay, those are very good thresholds, I think. However, the classifications become an issue. So you have a Tesla Model 3, which is clearly a car, and then you have a Tesla Model Y, which is clearly an SUV, except it's not considered an SUV unless it has 7 seats. And what happened is Teslas were in the $60,000 range. Ford ended up pricing it to compete with their price brackets, right? So when I bought this car, just as a refresher, this is a California Route 1. This is at 50,000, 51, I think it was the MSRP on it. This car went up to 64 nearly $1,000. The California Route 1 is now at 57, 58, something like that. And we'll jump into my thoughts on it. There's obviously some more features that they've added, all-wheel drive, heated seats, things like that. But here's the nuts and bolts of it. Tesla lowered their car 2 weeks ago or so about $7,000 to $14,000 so that they could be within the tax credit limit so they could sell more units. Perfect. Ford just announced today that they lowered it. However, here's the issue I'm seeing with Ford and their pricing structure. So I'm going to read off. So now their select model standard range is 46, lowered by $900. Their all-wheel drive select lowered by $600, still under 50 grand. Their premium rear wheel drive lowered by 5 grand. It was still within the range of the 55,000. Okay, so they're at 51 instead of 55, right? So okay, cool. They were still within purchase range. Their premium with all-wheel drive lowered from 58 to 54, which is great. But now we go back to the California Route 1 edition, and that's the one I really want to talk to you guys about. The other cars on here are at their GT and performances are above that, just as Tesla's performance models are also above the $55,000 threshold. Now, mind you, they're clearly SUVs or crossovers, but they're not considered those items. They're considered cars because of how many people they could seat and some other things, some old verbiage and terminology that they're using. But that's for a different thing altogether. We're just talking about tax credits today. And the car that they did not lower enough, I'm talking about Ford, is the California Route 1 edition. And the reason that car for me is the car that should have been the priority to lower is it's extended range and it's all-wheel drive. It gets 314 miles to the charge. Comparing that to Tesla's long-range model, which comes in at 54,000 and it has 330 miles of range. Essentially, it has 300 miles of range, right? They are really bad with their EPA ratings. They are now pitting against the California Route 1 to this. There's $4,000 in between those two cars. But it's actually, what, 11.5 of a difference because the Tesla does get that tax credit of $7,500. Ford essentially lowered the threshold to get a premium model that gets 270 miles to their usage versus another one that's getting 330. And I'll tell you this, and you can review my video before. When I got this California Route 1, it had 305 miles of range. I'm getting more than that. This is a rear-wheel drive, not an all-wheel drive. I wish I had all-wheel drive. However, the range was priority for me. And I think that's going to be priority for a lot of people when they're making purchases for their car, especially to be under $55,000. The premium model that Ford offers is excellent, has all the bells and whistles you could want. It just doesn't have the range, which again isn't too big of a deal unless you're really going to be making road trips and you live in a cold climate. There's battery shock on there. With that said, the closest competitor though to the Model Y Long Range Edition that is available for tax credit is the California Route 1 Edition, and it's 11.5 of a difference. That's crazy difference. So if Ford could make an attempt to lower their price margin just a little bit, I think they'll be a little bit more competitive in the market. However, there's a lot of people that buy it for features, and hands down, I believe that Ford offers a better feature experience. So if you are going to get a Ford Mustang Mach-E, I would definitely recommend getting the premium trim level at this point, even though the range isn't going to be as long as the Tesla, right? For round city driving, it's great. For most buyers, not being in a position to drive an electric vehicle, or maybe you're coming from another one, then disregard this. But if you're coming from an ICE vehicle to an EV, those would be the two trims that I'd be pacing together, and I think that's where Ford is losing. So at this point, after a year and a half or more at this point of owning the California Route 1, do I recommend the car still? I do recommend it. I love the way that this car has physical buttons and it also has digital buttons, and the mixture of that. That's something that Tesla doesn't do. They're more modernistic with, everything's done through the touchscreen. However, if I wanted to pick something that had long range, I would have to go with the Tesla at this point, and this is January 30th of 2023. I don't know if I would make the same purchase because, again, when I made the purchase initially, it was at $50,000 and I had the tax credit, so it made it 43. What was it? 42.5 for the car. Because I also got a local credit of $1,500 at the time of purchase, which was fantastic. Now the car is $7-8 grand more, and I'm not getting that tax credit. I'm looking at a range of a lot more money, a lot more thinking about my monthly cost, right? Versus a Tesla, which is coming in. Yes, it's still, again, for my original purchase price, speaking on mine, about $4 grand more, but I'm still getting the tax credit, so it's just a $4 grand more thing. Yes, you could talk about inflation, we could talk about all these things. Things will normalize here in the next couple of years, whether it's going to be the money you make or just how far your money can go when you spend it, right? Those are the things I just wanted to talk about. It's great for competitiveness. I can't wait to see what happens more. I can't wait till there's more value added into EVs in the coming years with the additional cars. Hyundai is looking really great with their Iconic series coming out with the trim levels. Ford, I'm hoping, comes out with another few EVs on the market to compete. Whatever is going to be replacing their Fusion. Their Ford Fusion was a huge seller. I think the Mach-E is taking that position in their lineup. But again, we need to see more cars. We need to see more vehicles to really make this competitive. But as of right now, I think the two best cars that you can get as far as for space and comfort are going to be the Mustang Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y. And right now, the Model Y is probably leaning in more favored. But again, if that tax credit doesn't affect you much, or because your liabilities aren't that high, whatever the case may be, then who cares? But I'm still leaning towards Ford, but Ford, just lower it by $4,000. You're almost there. And I think you'd be in a much better position to compete with Tesla. Tesla software is definitely really great, but the fit and finish of the Mach-E, I'm telling you, that's the only thing that has me going back and forth. That's why you've heard me go like this on it. But either way, let me know what you think in the comments. Are these price cuts enough for Ford to stay competitive, or do they really need to focus on their best trim level, well-rounded trim level of the California Route 1 edition? All right, let me know, guys. Have a good one.